The farmhouse in the Black Forest stood like a rotting tooth in a mouth of dead pines. Elias stepped inside, the floorboards screaming under his boots. He had inherited the property from a grandfather he never met, a man the locals whispered was a weaver of red silk. The smell hit him first, coppery, sweet, and ancient. In the kitchen, a single chair sat facing the basement door. Nailed to the wood was a human ear, still fresh, pinned with a rusted sewing needle. Elias felt his stomach lurch, but the door began to creak open on its own. A wet, sliding sound echoed from the dark. It sounded like a heavy carpet being dragged over glass. Elias shined his flashlight down the stairs. The walls weren't stone. They were covered in a pulsating, translucent membrane that throbbed with a slow, rhythmic heartbeat. He descended, drawn by a low hum that vibrated in his teeth. At the bottom, he found the loom. It was a massive rack made of bleached bone, strung with miles of glistening, red nerves. A figure stood over it, its back hunched, its fingers long and spindly as a spider's. The creature turned. It had no face, only a vertical slit that leaked a thick, black vial. It held a silver needle threaded with a human optic nerve. The tapestry is incomplete, it hissed, the sound coming from the walls themselves. We need a new shade of blue. Elias tried to run, but his feet were stuck. The floor was no longer wood. It was a layer of sticky, discarded skin. The creature lunged with impossible speed, its fingers cold as ice as they sank into his shoulders. It didn't bite. It began to unpick his stitches. He felt his skin being peeled back like a ripe fruit. There was no pain, only a horrific, cold emptiness. Elias felt his skin being peeled back like a ripe fruit. There was no pain, only a horrific, cold emptiness. He watched in a trance as the creature began to weave his veins into the loom. "You are not a guest, Elias," the monster gurgled. "You are the raw material." The basement walls began to moan. Faces shifted beneath the membrane. His grandfather, the missing girl from the village, his own mother. Their mouths were sewn shut with golden wire, their eyes wide and weeping. They weren't dead. They were part of the architecture. The creature worked with surgical precision. It removed his ribs one by one, clicking them into the bone rack of the loom. Elias could see his own heart beating in the open air, wrapped in the creature's spindly grip. "Beautiful," the thing whispered, such vibrant life. He tried to scream, but the creature reached into his throat and pulled his vocal cords taut, tying them to a wooden peg. He was becoming a harp of meat and bone. Every breath he took sent a discordant, mournful note echoing through the rotting farmhouse. The transformation was nearly complete. His consciousness was spreading into the walls, feeling the cold wind outside through the cracks in the wood. He could feel the trees, the soil, and the thousands of other weavings buried beneath the forest floor. The creature stepped back, admiring its work. Elias was now the ceiling, his skin stretched thin across the rafters. His eyes were placed in the corners of the room, forever watching the door for the next heir to arrive. The cycle of the weaver was eternal. Days passed, or perhaps centuries. Elias watched as a young man, with his own eyes, approached the house. The boy held a key and a legal document. Elias tried to warn him, but the only sound he could make was the creaking of the floorboards under the boy's weight. The basement door began to creak open once more. The weaver picked up a fresh needle, its faceless head tilting in anticipation. "Welcome home," the house seemed to sigh. The red silk began to glow, hungry for a new pattern. The extreme horror was just beginning.